Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pleb Underground, the signal without the slop. Got a lot of stories that we are going to take a look at, so let's dive into it. All right, starting with the Hopium. The McRib's back. You know what that means. The McRib indicator. We'll dive into why that's so important for Bitcoin. Newcomers most likely have no idea about the extremely complex relationship between the McDonald's McRib and Bitcoin's price. So we're going to shed some light on that as well. That's right. One of the pretty big national chartered bank, right? A publicly traded company that's going to be offering Bitcoin and crypto trading. So we are going to take a look at a video about that. Of course, we've got endless paper Bitcoin. That is going to be fun. The structure bill, right? The crypto market structure bill. We've got an update on that. We're going to take a look at that. And as well, China and US fight over seized Bitcoin. Now, this may sound familiar to you guys because we talked about it 2 weeks ago. I already covered this story, but as you know, the story has legs. So we're going to cover that because it's getting weird. It's definitely getting weird out there. Anyways, guys, get ready. It's going to be a fun day. Before we dive into all of the news, you know the deal. Going to give a shout out to the Pleb Underground sponsor. 30 seconds, and we are going to be right back. Let's frickin' go. Pleb Underground is sponsored by Archimedes Emporium. Discover the pinnacle of precision engineering, starting with their Bitcoin logo wall clock, meticulously machined in Maine from a solid block of aerospace-grade aluminum, ensuring unparalleled durability and performance. Experience the difference of a product made without compromise. Head on over to Archimedes Emporium. Okay. Hey, good morning, Extemos. Good to have you with us. Good morning, Turbo. All right. So I'm just saying hi to the people in the chat. So let's dive into it. McDonald's is bringing back the McRib for a limited time on November 11th. And I mean, if you looked at the Bitcoin price action, you wouldn't think that it's a very bullish indicator, considering what ended up happening yesterday. That's right, guys. That's right. We are. Bitcoin is dead once again, and we're dead at 101K now. Interesting. Dead at 101K. Anyways, what does the McRib indicator mean for us? Right? Well, what does it all mean? Well, in past instances, right? Here we go. The McDonald's senior marketing director, Guillaume Hewen, acknowledged this phenomenon, noting that when the McRib returned in December 2024, Bitcoin did in fact hit a new all-time high. Similar patterns were observed in 2017, 2020, and 2021. So, got a little bit of a history there, right? We've got a little bit of a history that maybe the McRib is giving us a shot to come back to life here at the maybe a delayed blown off top. I was talking about that yesterday in the chat with one of the fellow viewers, right? Are we going to get a delayed blow off top, or is it super cycle time? Even the McRib doesn't know. Even the McRib cannot predict this, but that's okay. That's okay. We're going to be paying attention to that. Anyways, let's dive into the story about SoFi or Sophie or however you want to pronounce it. I guess I'm assuming it's SoFi, right? Because financial, it's not. Well, then again, it's also financial. All right, whatever. Because I mean, pretty sure didn't Janet Yellen called Binance? Anyways, whatever. Potato, Sophie. Here we go. Sophie became the first national chartered bank to allow Bitcoin and crypto trading. So let's take a look here at what the CEO of SoFi had to say.
Person.
Good to see you as well.
Okay, so what's going on here? This is a big deal.
Yeah, this morning,
a very big deal for you.
It is a very big deal. It's a big day and a big milestone. Reverses the course of time.
It does.
We've wanted to be a one-stop shop for all your financial services needs, and one of the holes we've had for the last 2 years was in cryptocurrency, the ability to buy, sell, and hold crypto. We were not allowed to do that as a bank. It was not permissible. But in March of this year, the OCC came out with an interpretive letter that it's now permissible for banks like SoFi to offer cryptocurrencies. So this morning we're launching as the only national bank, the first and only national bank, the opportunity to buy, sell, and hold cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana.
Okay, what's going to be interesting, at least for me, is what happens when we have another massive pump or a massive dump, and these institutions, their trading platforms don't halt and don't crash like Coinbase and all of the other crypto casinos do. It's going to be pretty entertaining.
I was going to ask, are we just talking about 3 for now?
We'll expand well beyond 3. It'll be a pretty broad assortment. We try to differentiate on being fast, having broad selection, great prices, ease of use. So we'll try to give members, SoFi members, as much selection as they would like.
And what's the difference between going through you and going through Coinbase or going through Robinhood or somebody else?
Yeah, there's a couple of really big differences. First, we're a nationally chartered bank, which means we have the infrastructure, the processes, the financial conditions.
The not crashing and halting the exchange
that provides the safeguards that a consumer would expect from a bank, which is going to allow us to scale responsibly. The second thing is, because we are a one-stop shop, you can do all your banking, checking and savings at SoFi, your borrowing and your investing, and now crypto. And one of the unique things about that is when you come to SoFi and fund your crypto investments, you'll fund them in a SoFi checking and savings account. That check.
I don't know if you're going to be able to withdraw your corn from their platform. In listening to this sounds like another custody prison.
Savings accounts deposits earn interest.
Say that again. You're going to
nice.
You're going to fund
your checking account.
You're going to fund your checking account with cash.
Okay.
And then when you buy Bitcoin or Solana or Ethereum, the money will come straight out of your checking savings account. So when you're not putting cash to work, it's not sitting in an account that earns no interest, and it's not sitting in an account that's not insured. So the money will sit in an FDIC insured account. Up to $2 million is what we offer. And when you buy, it will instantly withdraw from that account and send it to the marketplace.
Okay. I'm definitely curious to see what ends up happening with that. For the people who don't know SoFi stories, SoFi was one of those SPAC deals back in 2020. So when COVID first happened, there was like a massive explosion of these SPACs, which essentially it's like a shell company, right? That doesn't actually do any business. And what happens is that you have a real business that wants to go public. But for whatever reason, they don't, either they don't want to go through the whole all the red tape, or they can't afford it, or whatever the reasons are. And what they do is that they will merge with this kind of shell company, right? This paper public company, and go public, so to speak. So SoFi was one of those companies that did that. I don't know why I pronounced the word company so weird just there. That's weird. But it was one of those companies that did the reverse SPAC. And in the beginning, right? I mean, if you go take a look at the chart, this thing was just dumped, right? Like it came out on the market. It did what everything else does. It just dumped. However, what did ended up happening with SoFi was that they took their business seriously, and they started to actually execute on their business plan. And as they've been doing this, right, and as they've been focusing, they've been able to cut their debt, grow their earnings, and essentially becoming the company that they want to become. And of course, I'm not freaking trying to sell you the shares or any of that shit. There's no reason for that. What I'm saying though is that this company is taking the right steps in order to ensure that they're going to stick around and be able to offer the services that people want. And in all fairness, SoFi is probably doing a better job of reaching the millennials and Zoomers than a lot of the other banking platforms. So, hats off to them, right? Hats off to them. And again, like I said before, I am very curious to see what happens when we have, because I got to tell you, the way I see this is that Coinbase is going to have to step up their game. They're going to have no choice, right? Like all of that token casino and all the shenanigans and all that crap, that's not going to be enough. Brian, the only thing that people really want, they don't want to get scammed by you. They just don't want your platform to crash when they're using it. They just want to be able to buy Bitcoin when they want. And for the people that are selling Bitcoin, they just want to be able to sell Bitcoin when they want. They don't want to be stuck in your prison. It's that simple, So maybe this is going to force Coinbase to step it up. But look, like I said, I don't really have much. I don't have much faith in Coinbase. So, what are you saying there, ABW? All TradFi institutions are not used. Yeah, that's right, man. If Bitcoin tanks out of hours, it's going to be real fun. And I think to your point, that means that they are indeed going to have to become 24-hour shops, right? They have no choice, right? You either join the game and compete, or you fall behind and you disappear. It's that simple. Anyways, okay, let's continue. Let's continue on. All right, let's go take a look at some endless paper Bitcoin, because of course we always have more endless paper Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin without the endless paper Bitcoin? Anyways, so Capital Group Fundamental Investors Mutual Fund, ANCFX, just disclosed they bought 2.43 million, or that's interesting, yeah, $243.75 million worth of Strategy Perpetual Preferred Stock. So, I still don't buy this this whole flywheel. I just don't buy it. I've said it before, businesses that are cash flow neutral or cash flow negative, can't afford to pay for daily operations, just bothers me. Like, I get it, I get it. MicroStrategy has 641,000 Bitcoin, and yeah, they can sell it, in bad times. Unfortunately, their whole value proposition is that they hold Bitcoin and that they create all of these products from all of the Bitcoin that they hold. So if they start to sell Bitcoin, that's to stay alive. Like, yeah, if you're an investor in MicroStrategy and you believe in MicroStrategy and you don't care about Bitcoin, then you're going to be like, yes, MicroStrategy is doing what it takes to stay alive. But if you purchased MicroStrategy shares under the guise that they were just going to continue to hold and accumulate Bitcoin, and all of a sudden they start to sell it, your value proposition starts to go away, because what has happened, right? He's created all these vehicles, he's diluted all of these shares, and now all of a sudden, the last carrot on the end of the stick was, hey, I'm holding these shares because you're holding more Bitcoin. Well, now all of a sudden you're holding less Bitcoin. So diluted the shares over 200% in the last 3 years. Now you're holding less Bitcoin. You're making all these products. Anyways, paper Bitcoin summer, it's here, right? Instead of people trying to figure out how to buy Bitcoin, these businesses are just going and buying shares and getting paid their yield. And of course, right, it's also a different product, right? When you're buying that type of a product, it's not that you are necessarily trying to get exposure to Bitcoin per se. What you are trying to do is get exposure to regular income generated from a business that creates these products and holds Bitcoin. So it's a little bit different. Anyways, moving on. All right. So, Japanese Bitcoin treasury company Metaplanet CEO says almost 0.2% of all Japanese are now shareholders of the company. Of course, this has been spreading around Twitter. How does he come to that conclusion? Well, he has access to the shareholder registry, right? So to a certain extent, right? Like, here in the public, we don't really know how accurate this is. We can just assume that, he's being forthright about the information. But to me, this, again, right, it goes back to the businesses that don't generate any actual cash flow or have operating earnings. Businesses getting exposure to this stuff is great if these businesses can continue to hold and accumulate Bitcoin into the future. If they cannot, then these businesses holding shares of companies like this, it then becomes contagion. That's unfortunately one of the things that we saw happen in the Great Financial Crisis, right? That there was a bunch of institutions that were holding on to these products that they thought were holding prime rated mortgages, and it turned out they were holding subprime mortgages, and they were mostly garbage, even though they were rated very well. Now, of course, obviously, Bitcoin's not the same thing. However, that is a similar type of situation that absolutely can play out if these businesses can't actually afford to hold their Bitcoin, and they have to start to sell it to keep the lights on, right? Because these businesses now that bought their shares, well, what are they going to do? They're going to go and dump their shares, and that's going to create market pressure. And then, of course, it just becomes the cascade, right? It becomes the cascade. So anyways, I mean, look, on one side, you could say good for them. On the other side, I'd say, let's be cautious. Anyways, More paper Bitcoin, guys. Here we go. Canadian public company Matador Technologies just raised that. This is the one with the chief vision officer, Mark Moss. It's good stuff. Just raised 10.5 million through convertible notes to buy Bitcoin. And let's just let's quickly just get a sentiment here from shareholders. How do they feel about this? Not so happy. Not so happy. Not a surprise. Not a surprise. Not so happy. Oh, gosh. Oh, wow. Bitcoin Shango. I didn't realize this. Yeah, somebody told me yesterday also there was a pause. On my end, though, I'm not seeing it. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. But even Ulrich believes that somehow this channel is shadow banned or something like that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I just don't say the things that make people happy, and I don't go to the events to be part of the circle jerk. And so as a result, right, it's just, this is like, right, we if you aren't willing to do what it takes, then you will not get the rewards. It's that simple. And I'm not looking for those rewards. I just want to talk about Bitcoin. That's all. It's, why is this so hard? Shouldn't do a that's what she said joke, but just, okay, doesn't matter. Let's continue. Let's continue. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I know, right, Rourke? Fucking Mark Moss, CVO. It's so ridiculous. This is what happens, right? When you get these people that have these fake jobs. It's not a real job. Fucking nonsense. Okay. Continuing on. Let's dive into the crypto market structure bill. All the shit coiners, all the stable coins, everybody's waiting for this. You know who I noticed doesn't care about this? People like me. And other Bitcoiners also don't care about the structure bill. But the shit coiners and the stable coiners and all of those guys, they care. They care. They need this. So, Senate committee has finally released the long-awaited draft of the crypto market structure bill. Oh my gosh, huge update. What's going on? What's changing? Senate Agriculture Committee on Monday released a much-anticipated discussion draft, womp womp, of its portion of a sweeping bill that would overhaul how cryptocurrencies are regulated. And yeah, the big TLDR is the CFTC is the right agency to regulate the spot digital commodity trading, and it is essential to establish clear rules for the emerging crypto market while also protecting consumers. So we can pretty much guarantee that the CFTC is going to be taking over that role. The reason, from what I understood, the reason why right now this is kind of contentious is because there apparently is only one person on that CFTC committee, and there needs to be 5. So there's going to be, and supposedly there are no other candidates right now on the that are being looked at. So yeah, I guess that's why this is this is being so anticipated, so to speak. Okay, so China and US are fighting over seized Bitcoin. Is that the whole story? No, it isn't. It is not. So I don't know if you guys remember, but 2 weeks ago, I covered this story, and I am just going to hold on a second here. We're going to pull this stuff up. Okay. So you guys might recall this, right? And just so you know, I put the link in the show notes, so you guys can go back and review that up. And I put it right at the timestamp, so you don't have to go and watch everything else. So the UK seeks to pay back Chinese investors swindled in the US Bitcoin fraud. So I want you guys to think about this. So all the news we're seeing this week is about the US and China specifically accusing the US of seizing these funds. However, no one's talking about the fact that the UK has a whole bunch of victims that they're trying to get funds back for those victims, right? They're trying to make those victims whole. So this is not just a China-US thing. This is becoming a Bermuda Triangle of China, US, and the UK. Everybody's trying to get their piece of this seized Bitcoin. Now, the other piece that I thought was comical of this whole story was, I don't know if you guys recall this, right? But it was these two Chinese women that were convicted for laundering stolen crypto. And what happened was that 2 weeks ago, another 67 or 80, what is it, $89 million, okay, was seized after Zhang informed the police last month that she kept passwords for 2 crypto wallets in a purpose-made concealed pocket within a pair of jogging pants, which she was wearing at the time of the arrest. $89 million sitting in a tiny little pocket in her jogging pants. Okay, so now let's fast forward to what's happening today. Okay, so that's the weirdness that happened there. So keep in mind, there's essentially 3 jurisdictions, right? And so now this is where we are. China's Emergency Response Center, the CVERC, accuses the U.S. of seizing the 127,000 Bitcoin stolen in 2020 hack of the Hopium mining pool. The CVERC says state-level hacking organization was behind the theft and claims the U.S. seizure was part of the same operation. The coins tied to Shenzhen, now indicted for crypto fraud, sat dormant for years before moving to U.S.-linked wallets. Washington disputes this, calling it a lawful action against criminal proceeds, but Beijing sees it as a provocation, escalating tensions. Okay? Hold on. Let's keep going. So this is kind of the piece that doesn't make sense. So the CVERC said the stolen Bitcoin on the Hopium hacker's address had remained dormant for nearly 4 years following the hack until the funds were fully taken over by the U.S. government last year. But that would indicate the U.S. government already had access to those funds. CVERC said the long dormancy of the stolen Bitcoin before the U.S. seizure is clearly inconsistent with the nature of ordinary hackers who are eager to cash out and pursue profits. So that essentially indicates that obviously China is not only blaming the U.S., but believes that the U.S. Has obviously done something, has done something unlawful in order to take that seized Bitcoin. Now, you're kind of wondering, like, what is the signal in all of this? I want you guys to understand something. They're fighting over seized Bitcoin. They're not trying to print money to buy Bitcoin. They're not trying to figure out some other revenue neutral way or trying to create some profitable venture so that they can take those profits and purchase Bitcoin for the country. And again, you know me, I'm not a proponent of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I don't care if a government holds Bitcoin. I rather us as individuals hold Bitcoin. That to me is the win. But you'll notice that's what they're fighting over, guys. They're fighting over seized Bitcoin. They're not trying to do anything else. That is the signal. The majority of let me rephrase that. The governments who can, right? The governments who can actually enforce their will of violence will never purchase Bitcoin. They will always seize it. I really believe that as of right now, there's only El Salvador and maybe Bhutan, like 2 countries in the whole world that aren't using that are essentially aren't using violence in order to accumulate their Bitcoin, or the enforcement of the state, right? Anyways, yeah, so that story is turning out very interesting. Apparently, right, the stack that these 2 ladies managed to amass is causing governments to act like kids in a schoolyard. So yeah, we are obviously going to be following this, and we're going to be updating it as it goes on. But guys, that's going to do it for us for today, for this episode of Pleb Underground. Thank you again for joining me. Yeah, you know what, Rourke? Maybe their pocket was lined with Faraday material. Yeah, exactly, right? Purpose-made concealed pocket, like that extra. You mean the booger pocket in jeans? I remember when I was a kid, people told me, they're like, no, that's for lighters. I still never figured out what that tiny little jean pocket thing is over there. Anyways, all right, guys, that is going to do it for us for today. I will catch you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Peace out.